So I went to the dungeon and started using all my insecurities as strength. Instead of looking at being bullied and my dad messing me up and all that stuff like that, I looked at it as, who could have survived all this and still be here with the opportunity to go into Navy SEAL training? So I finally get to a point where I get the courage to go to a recruiter and say, hey, I want to go try to do this. But when you're 297 pounds and you want to go try to be one of the fittest people in the world, you get laughed at. So I got laughed at a lot, but this process was actually hardening my mind. All the laughter, because the laughter used to make me cower. Now I realize that I can no longer hide from my insecurities, hide from all these fears. I had to start wearing them. I had to start talking about them. I had to start being vulnerable because I was always afraid of them. So here I am now. I'm facing them. I finally find a recruiter that says, hey, we'll take you in. And he says, you have less than 3 months to lose 106 pounds. I'm like, that's impossible. That was my mindset. But I was like, hey, I can't have that kind of mindset. And so I started using all these negative things and started flipping everything on top of his head. Instead of saying, woe is me, kicking rocks, head down in the dirt, I started saying, there's not a motherfucker on the planet who would have this opportunity coming from where I came from. They would be a statistic. So I started looking at it as power versus like big time defeat. And slowly but surely, every day, I started changing the voice in my head, because the most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. So I slowly started changing that internal dialogue in my head. And there wasn't no like teacher, there was no shrink, there was no mom saying, hey David, you can do it. No, it was me. And that was where the power came from. The power came from, no one's helping me, no one's coming back to save me, no one's coming back to pull me to the finish line. This is on you. So I saw a lot of power in the fact that if I change this around, I did this. I changed this around. When I would bust my ass, when I would fail, when I was at the bottom of the sewer, she never picked me up. She never gave me that cookie and said, hey son, it's gonna be okay. Yeah. She didn't have time for that. And sometimes she gets upset when I talk about my past, because it paints her out to be not the best mom. If I had any kind of mom in that kind of environment, I would have never made it. Because she forced me, for every reason, she forced me to, you better figure this out, or you're gonna be a statistic. And this is something that she didn't sit down and tell me. I realized this. This is the world that is in front of me. And what most people do is they see this world and they look at it as an excuse to get out of it. I started looking at it as, this is the ultimate training ground for the rest of my life. I have all these valuable lessons, because if you look out in the world right now today, it's not a nice place, but I'm very prepared for it. I'm prepared for all the failure coming my way. I'm prepared for everything my way. And that's the biggest lesson that she taught me by not teaching me, by never saying it's going to be okay. Matter of fact, she told me the exact opposite. Life sucks. And so I saw that. And so I started at that point in my life. I have a lot more failures, as you see in that book. But I started down the road of, instead of the path of least resistance, I started choosing the path of most resistance to prepare myself for the journey that was coming my way. You were bullied. Do you remember how many nights you spent by yourself in your head thinking about how miserable that was? That's exactly my drive. I know that there's not just me and you. There's millions and millions, especially nowadays with all this pressure, man. You can now bully on your phone. Back in our day, it was face to face. You can do everything over your phone. The pressures of trying to keep up with everything is at an all-time high. And our mindsets are at an all-time low. We are the weakest we've been mentally ever since the beginning of time. So it's harder with a weaker mind. So all I want to do, my whole drive is about, I have a really good way of visualizing people suffering, because a lot of people do it. We have two sides of us. We have one side that is that happy-go-lucky side, that nothing's wrong and everything is good. But we have that side at home when no one's around, that's depressed and miserable and we're not good enough. Yeah. And whatever happened to you is real. So That's my drive. I want to make sure that I give people as much power as I can. So when they get up every morning, they know that, hey, I have the ability to not only survive in this world, but thrive in this world just by the mere fact of hearing about my story. I said, I'm tired of feeling the way I feel every day. I'm tired of how I feel. I'm tired of lying to myself, lying to people. And I always knew in the back of my mind, I could be something special, but I knew the work it was going to take was going to kill me. I was afraid of that. I was afraid of the brutality and the suffering I was going to have to endure. But I knew I could do something. But I'm like, I ain't trying to do that kind of work, man. I'm just not trying to do that. So I chose the path of the easy, of least resistance. So now my ideas, it became so haunting and daunting on me, myself, that I said, I'm done. So before I start this journey to be Navy SEAL, I go back to see my dad. I'm blaming everything. I got to go back. You know how a lot of times, like, if you're a runner, your right knee may hurt, but it's not your right knee that hurts, it's really your left hip. But we're concentrating on the right knee. But I need to go back to the root of the problem. I got to face the demon. We live in a world now that's so kind. We find the kind way around everything. Like, if you don't look good, I have to find a kind way of saying, I don't like your shirt. That's not the approach. If that's the approach you're looking for, can't hurt me is not for you. The approach you have to take. The conversation had to be a real, honest conversation in the accountability mirror of, guess what? I was fat. Don't find a kind word to say that, you know what? I've gained some weight. No, you're fat. When I couldn't read, not like, hey, you know, you have a learning disability. No, I cannot read. I have a 4th grade reading level. I'm struggling. And sometimes I call myself stupid, not in a way to put myself down. So don't take it like, my God, those are so hurtful. Yeah, they're hurtful, dishonest. The conversation has to become an honest conversation of where you're at mentally. Where am I at mentally? I'm falling behind in school. I'm lazy. My house is a mess. You have to look at what it is and call it what it is. Don't find words to make yourself feel better, so we hang around people that make us feel better, that tell us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. And so we stay away from those people. And we stay away from those people, like our internal dialogue becomes that kind, it's okay. It's not okay. So that's where it starts. It starts with that accountability of, it's not okay anymore. This can no longer be okay. And calling yourself out for exactly what you are and exactly how you need to fix it. That's where it starts.